Hare Krishna. So we are discussing today on the topic of dining with a monkey. So the word dining conveys the idea of settling down to a congenial, cordial agreement of some level. Now the monkey, as most of you may have inferred, refers to what the Bhagavad Gita calls the mind. So let's look at this. Firstly, within all of us there is a mysterious inner sabotager. Now sabotage means to destroy, but sabotage is a specific kind of destruction. Say if two armies are fighting against each other, so the normal attack comes from the opposite side. But if the opposite side has got some spies, and so there is army A, army B, both of them have got their tanks, and they are fighting with each other. So the B will shoot the tanks at A will shoot the tanks at B. But if B has got some spies who have put some explosives under the tanks of A, then even without an attack, frontal attack from B, A's tanks will be destroyed and they will be easily defeated. So an attack from inside is called a sabotage. So in modern psychology, one of the most talked about phenomena is called as self-sabotaging tendency. That often we work out to be our own worst enemy. This sometimes we see very prominently in sports. Suppose a player is batting when now a cricket tournament is going on. So suppose a player is batting very well and suddenly for no reason that player hits a rash shot. It is the situation does not require that shot. There is danger in that shot and still some daredevilish instinct comes into the person and player hits the rash shot, gets out, and then the whole subsequent batting line collapses and one match is lost. In Hindi se jeeti bazi haar jana. So this happens, and later on not only the cricket commentators may comment, why did this person play such a stupid shot? But that person also gets bewildered. What happened? Why did I do such a thing? So what we see sometimes, this self-sabotaging, or sometimes it is called as choking. Certain players or certain teams, they are said to choke under pressure. So choking basically means that people crumble not because of external pressure, but because of internal pressure. So now, throughout the world history, there has been recognized by thinkers, there is something within us which makes us act against our best interests. And this is most prominently seen in today's culture, in the modern and the postmodern times, because today's times we have acquired in some ways more knowledge and more power through that knowledge than what we had in the past, at least in recent history. So with greater power comes greater capacity to misuse that power. So for example, in America, in San Bernardino, we know there were shootouts where just some people go crazy and with a machine gun they kill so many people and then they kill themselves quite often. Now if we look at many of the times, if we talk with the neighbors or the journalists talk with the neighbors of these people, the neighbors say, he was just a nice person. We never thought he would do something like this. So what happens is people just snap. So what is it that makes people do such self-destructive actions? So the Bhagavad Gita explains that within us there is a self-sabotaging force which it calls as the mind. Now the word mind has many meanings and some of them are positive. For example, Albert Einstein is often called as the greatest mind of the 20th century. Here, mind refers to the intelligence. He is the most intelligent person of the 21st century. Or sometimes we may say, where is your mind? That means, if somebody is not paying attention, we say, pay attention. There we say, mind simply refers to attention. So like that, the word mind can have many different meanings. The Bhagavad Gita uses the word mind in a very specific sense. So when it uses the word mind, it first of all explains that there is a tripartite ontology. No need to get agitated by the words. So tripartite basically means 3 levels. And ontology refers to the nature of existence. So just like in a computer setup, we have hardware, we have software, and we have the user. So like that, there is within our existence itself, our existence is 3 levels. The physical, which is like the computer hardware, the mental, which is like the computer software, and the spiritual, which is like the user of the computer. So, the physical, mental, and spiritual. These are the 3 dimensions of our existence. Modern science progressed enormously, but by focusing on the physical side of reality. There is physical, there is mental, and there is spiritual. So modern science has progressed by focusing on the physical side of reality. And in the physical side, we have acquired a lot of control as compared to recent history. But when attention focuses on one thing, it is natural that attention disfocuses from some other things. When we focus on one thing, we don't notice other things. So as a matter of the whole civilization itself, our modern civilization and also the postmodern civilization that is focused largely on the physical side of reality. And the result of this is that our attention from the mental and the spiritual side has been substantially distracted. And Martin Luther King, he said more than 50 years ago, that we live in an age of guided missiles and misguided men. Guided missiles and misguided men. So we have phenomenal technology to control the missiles without. But our own insides we are not able to control. And the Bhagavad Gita explains that the mind can act as a self-sabotaging agent. Just as the software in a computer, it is meant to enable us to use the hardware for a constructive purpose. But the hardware can get damaged. But the hardware cannot be used if the software gets corrupted. There may be malware, there may be viruses, whatever. The software gets corrupted, the hardware cannot be used. Similarly, if the mind gets agitated, the mind gets contaminated, then we may be physically healthy, but we will not be able to function effectively. So, the software is essential for using the hardware. If there were no software on the computer, I just get a fresh computer with nothing installed, we can't do anything with it. So similarly, the mind is like the software, and we need the mind as the agency for interacting with the body. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in the 15th chapter, 9th text, that Shrotram chakshuh sparshanam cha rasanam ghranam eva cha adhisthaya manaschayam vishayanupasevate. So he says that all the senses, Shrotra, Chakshu, Sparsha, Rasana, Ghrana, that the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the skin, all of them adhisthaya manaschayam, just as the fingers are centered around the palm. So like that the senses are centered around the mind. So the mind is the integrator of the sensory inputs. And after integrating these inputs, they are presented to the consciousness to the soul for decision. So now the scientific worldview, it just doesn't understand what all is there beyond the physical. Why? Because its focus is the physical level of reality. Just like if I have nowadays almost everybody has color TVs, color cameras, but suppose there is a black and white TV. No matter what we do, we cannot get a color image on a black and white TV. The apparatus and the output are incompatible. So just as with a black and white TV, we cannot get a color image. Similarly, by material science, we cannot understand spiritual truths. The methodology and the knowledge desired, they are incompatible. So that's why we need an alternative source of knowledge for understanding our inner side. And that's why we see in the world, there are, especially in the Western world, which has progressed enormously, there are millions of people who are turning towards spirituality, and especially towards Eastern spirituality, towards yoga. Yoga has millions of practitioners in America, in Europe, and in many other westernized parts of the world. So why is this? Because people have recognized that the modern knowledge systems can provide us control over the outer world, but they cannot guide us in our inner territory. And through meditation, through yoga, through chanting, through all these spiritual means, we understand and gain some amount of control over our inner world. So the point I'm making through all this is that the Gita's tripartite ontology, the physical, the mental and the spiritual, this is not just some sectarian belief system. This is something which any intelligent person can understand, that this is not non-scientific or anti-scientific, this is trans-scientific. Science has a particular focus, and in that focus it can give us tremendous power. But there are things beyond what science can show us. There is of course spiritual science, which is a different subject which we'll come to a little later. But what is taught in today's university education and what is thought of as science, that is material science. And it is phenomenally powerful in a particular area, but it doesn't help us in practically learning to control the mind, learning to manage the mind. So we talked about, this topic is called as dining with a monkey. Often we talk about controlling the mind, disciplining the mind, purifying the mind. All this is important, but at the same time, we have to ultimately live with the mind. Just as for working in the software, working with a computer, the software is indispensable. Similarly, we need to learn to work with the mind. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki. So, let's look at a further understanding of what the Bhagavad Gita teaches. So, one of the first teachings of the Bhagavad Gita is that everything inside you is not you. What it means is, usually we think of external and internal. Okay, this desk is outside me, and there are some thoughts, some ideas, they're inside me. So we think of external as outside and internal, that is mind, that is inside. But this differentiation of external and internal is based on a bodily reference point. From the body's point of view, what is outside is external and what is inside is internal. But the Bhagavad Gita explains that our essential identity is not the body, it is the soul. And from the soul's point of view, not just the physical, but even the mental is external. So, inside us, there is the mind and there is the soul. And the mind's voice is not exactly our voice. We'll discuss about the different major voices in the mind later. But everything inside us is not us. There are voices within us which are alien to our essential nature. They are contrary to our actual desires. And many times we feel impelled to do certain things. Maybe eat this, watch this, go here, do that. And then afterwards you feel, why did I do that? Why did I do that? So here, if you think about this deeply, why did I do that? This means there is an I who did it, and there is an I who is wondering why I did it. Isn't it? Now, these two I's, the I which did and the I which observed. So what exactly are these two I's? And how do they interact? So we will discuss this later, but suffice it to say at this stage that everything inside us is not us. Just as in a computer, I may want to do certain functions in a computer. But many times if you browse certain commercial websites or any website for that matter, we browse on one tab and suddenly there are dozen other tabs which come up. They're not only there are some pop-up windows which come up. Now we don't want to surf over there. But sometimes what happens is, not only the pop-up windows come up, but sometimes there is a ready-made multiple choice option with a particular option already ticked. For example, the simple way we understand, if we are working on a Word file, we may have an option, do you want to save the file? Yes or no? So now, if sometimes there is most of the times the default option is yes. And that is good. But sometimes if there is a bug in a computer, the default option becomes no. And if we don't notice it, we think the default option is yes, and we just tap it, and what happens is the file gets deleted. It's not saved because the default option there was no. So just as in a computer software, there are default options which are actually false. The default can often be a fault. And if we are not vigilant while working on a computer, a default option can take us off track. So like that, within us also there are different options, there are different ideas that come up, and not all those ideas are our own ideas. So we will look at how the mind works as a monkey through an acronym MIND. So misdiagnosis, indirection, negativity and double role. So let's discuss this one by one. So the mind is compared often to a monkey. Why monkey? Because the monkey is by definition restless. All of you are sitting and hearing a class. If there was a monkey in this room, then what would the monkey do? The monkey would not sit peacefully. The monkey would just jump here, go there, go here, like that. Why is that? That is the nature of the monkey. The monkey is by definition restless. So Krishna describes, and Arjuna also says the thing, chanchala. Chanchalam hi manaha Krishna. The mind is chanchala, restless, like a monkey. So now, if we observe, often when we sit in a class also, when we physically sit, but our mind like a monkey goes here and there. The mind goes for sightseeing walks here, there and everywhere. And sometimes when there's a joke, the mind comes like, hey, I want the joke. What was the joke? So, the mind is by nature restless. So, it is like a monkey. But, if suppose somebody has got a monkey, somebody is a monkey trainer, or somebody has got a monkey as a pet, then training pets or training an animal as a circus animal, it is also a skill. It is not that just any animal can be caught from jungle and it can be put in a circus and it will start performing. No, it requires training. And it is not just that any animal can be brought in, that animal also has to be handled by an expert, trained by an expert and handled by an expert. So similarly, to manage the mind, we also have to become experts. And often, and there are trainers of wild animals, that they know if there are horse trainers. Nowadays people don't use horses so much, but in the past, horses were a primary mode of communication. And when horses had to be, they use the word breaking a horse. Breaking doesn't mean physically breaking the bone of a horse. It means breaking the obstinacy of a horse. The horse, if it has never seated a rider on its back before, it doesn't want to. If the horse has been, say, caught in the jungle and brought in, then they say it is not broken. That means nobody has sat on it. So for the first time, breaking a horse is a difficult and often dangerous process. Because first time if somebody sits on the horse will just throw off that person. And not only throw off that person, that horse may charge and try to stampede on that person also. Stamp on that person. So it requires an expert horse trainer to break an horse. And after the horse is broken, that means after it has been rid on, then slowly it becomes biddable. Biddable means it becomes manageable. And only when the horse has become manageable, then it is sold. Sold in the market. Or if it is directly sold, then the purchaser has to get a horse trainer who will break the horse, and then the horse can be used. So when just that is the way normally a horse is used, but we all are born with an unbroken horse within us. The mind is not trained, and every horse that has to be broken, or a horse, or every monkey, if it has to be trained, whatever, every monkey is an individual, and there are certain broad principles, but along with those broad principles, every monkey has its own, or every horse has its own idiosyncrasies. It likes to do this, it doesn't like to do that. So then the horse trainer has to customize its training so as to take into account the individual nuances of that particular horse and train accordingly. So here what we are discussing is the broad ways in which the mind acts like a monkey. So when the mind acts like a monkey, it goes off in various directions. But which are the directions in which it goes? We will try to understand it here in a broad way. And then we will discuss how we can deal with this, how we can dine with the monkey. That means how we can break the horse and how we can learn to use it for our purposes. So misdiagnosis. What does this mean? Let's look at it first. So if any of you use the word, many times in any text editor, there is something called autocorrect. So the autocorrect, if we type something wrong, it is meant to correct it. So I use autocorrect. First time I used it with the editor. So I wrote the soul is Satchitananda. And then I was reading it again. I found the soul is Saturday Chitananda. So by its own program, Sat, it thought Sat is what? It's a short form for Saturday. So it's now I had typed it in correctly, but the autocorrect was incorrect. So then what I had to do was I had to conscientiously correct the incorrect autocorrect. So like that, what happens is the mind has certain modes of interpreting reality. And when the mind interprets reality in a particular way, it often has certain default formulas for solving problems. So it is said that if one has a hammer, the whole world seems to be nails. If I have a hammer, I think everything around me is a nail. I just hit the hammer, everything will get solved. So the mind comes, all of us have certain pet ways of dealing with problems. So, for example, if somebody is an addict in some way. So if somebody is addicted to, say, drinking alcohol, then what happens? Anytime a big problem comes up, I think the solution is drink. There is no problem so big that alcohol can't solve it. Just drink. Now, quite often, actually, that alcohol itself may be the cause of the problem. But the mind has developed that particular pattern of thinking. that this is the solution. In any treatment, any therapy, the first step is accurate diagnosis. If the diagnosis goes wrong, then after that, whatever treatment we may give, it will be in vain. About 10-15 years ago, I had a severe case of TB. And I took almost 1 year treatment. I recovered fully. And after that, after 3 years after that, again I got severe fever, weight loss and similar symptoms. Then I went to the doctor, and the doctor did some preliminary checkups. And he asked me how was my diet, what was my living. And then he came to very grave. He said, you got a relapse of the TB. Now, ART-resistant TB is supposed to be very, very difficult to cure. In the past, TB was fatal also. Now also TB is fatal if it is not treated. So now already I had a 1 year treatment. So now RTB, he said, you'll have to take almost 3-4 years of treatment. And even then, how much you'll be cured, we can't see. So the doctor was very grim, I was very grim. And then, we're just about to start the medicines. And at that time, suddenly the doctor, actually literally the nurse had come and she was giving me the medicines. And the doctor phoned, don't give the medicines. What happened? And the doctor came back and he told me that I had sent your samples for multiple tests. And just now one report has come and he said, actually, your test has come positive for that disease. Some disease, I don't even remember the name now. It's a very, very unusual kind of disease. And he just gave me treatment. So what I was not able to get cured in 1 month, in 3 days I was cured after that. So what happened was, there was a potential misdiagnosis. And the doctor, although it's a good doctor, but still, because I had the past track record of TB, so the default thought was, this must be a relapse of the TB. If the doctor had been a little less vigilant and had not done that particular kind of test, then I may have taken 3 years of treatment and still I would not have got cured. So, misdiagnosis can be disastrous. Similarly, for us, when we are having some trouble, when we are having some problem, understanding what the problem is very important. And the mind tends to misdiagnose the problem. Misdiagnose the problem means it makes us believe quite often that which is the cause of the problem is the cure for the problem. The very thing that has caused the problem, the mind makes us think this is the cure for the problem. So, as I said, if a person is an addict, now currently I am working on a book on de-addiction based on Bhagavad Gita. So, I've been reading narratives of different addicts and how they deal with it. So, often we think that if we are dissatisfied in life, we think dissatisfaction is because of frustration of desire. I had a particular desire, that desire was not fulfilled, that's why I am dissatisfied. That's why we think, that's what we think is normally the cause of dissatisfaction. That can be a cause of dissatisfaction, but a more common cause of dissatisfaction is not frustration of desire, but domination by desire. What does domination by desire mean? So there was this alcohol addict, and see, when desires come, it is sarva dharman parityajya mayam ekam sharanam vraja. When a desire catches, actually people just give up everything, just chase after that desire. See, often the Bhagavad Gita talks about we are bound, there is bondage and we have to become liberated. So we may ask, where am I bound? I can go anywhere I want, I can go to a shop, I can eat, I can go to a garden, I can go to a movie. I am free. See, there are different kinds of bondage. There is one bondage is a prisoner's bondage, where the prisoner is shackled and that bondage makes a person motionless. But there is another bondage that is a puppet's bondage. A puppet is bound and the puppet moves, but the puppet has no freedom to choose how to move. So, the prisoner's bonds make the prisoner motionless. But we are bound not like a prisoner, we are bound like a puppet. And the bond of desires, they don't make us motionless, they make us restless. When we are bound by desires, we run here, we run there, we run there. Asha pasha shatair baddha kama krodha parayanaha ihante kama bhogartham anyayena artha sanchayan. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 16.12, Asha pasha shatair baddha. Hundreds and thousands of desires, we are bound by it. The desires make us restless. So I was telling this anecdote of this alcoholic, how he got the epiphany. Epiphany means realization. He got the realization, I'm actually bound. So one night around 3:34 in the morning, he had slept at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and then he woke up at 3:30. He suddenly had a desire to drink alcohol. He woke up and he was literally dragged out of the bed. He went to his fridge and he found there's no alcohol there. Got frustrated. Then he took out his car. This has happened in America. He took out his car and went into the nearest bar. And along the way, his car sputtered and broke down. So then he went out and he went to the bar, and he went to the bar, and what happened is that the particular alcohol brand that he wanted, it was not there. So now he had to go almost half a mile to another place. So around 3:34 in the morning, he just went there to that particular bar, and finally he got that alcohol. And now it was cold at night, just walking along, his car was somewhere in the middle. He just left the car there itself, because the desire is so strong. So then he was just going along. He took one sip. He said, it's so cold, let me go in my car, and then, or I'll go to my home and then I'll drink it. And as he was just going along with the car, walking along, suddenly there was some stone or something, and he slipped and he fell on the ground. And he had just taken a sip. At that time, the lid was loose, and the whole alcohol got spilled all over his body. Then he just was lying on the ground, and then he just looked up and he saw all the skyscraper buildings, all the lights closed. And he thought, what am I doing? I could be sleeping peacefully in bed. What am I doing here with the car broken, with my clothes filled with alcohol? I am really enslaved. I am enslaved by desire. But this sort of epiphany, this sort of realization, it can act as a moment of awakening. Now, unfortunately, what could have happened at that time if he had not been alert? Some level of alertness is possible, and it was accessible even at that time. But if he had not been alert, the mind would have said, you are a stupid fool. You lost the alcohol, go and get another alcohol. So the normal tendency would have been, oh, I'm frustrated. Why? I'm dissatisfied, I'm frustrated because my desire was not fulfilled. But the cause of dissatisfaction, the cause of misery here is not the frustration of desire. That, oh, I did not get the alcohol, the particular bottle, it just got spilled. The cause of the suffering is deeper. That is domination by desire. And if that domination can be removed, then a lot of misery can be avoided. So this does not mean that all of us have to live desireless lives. There are different kinds of desires, and we will discuss that towards the later part of our class. But suffice it to say that actually the mind misdiagnoses our problem. It makes us believe that often that which is the cause of the problem, the mind makes us believe that is the cure for the problem. So this is one of the ways in which the mind misdirects us. The second is indirection. Indirection is a noun which comes from indirect. Indirect means someone doesn't speak directly. So there is a problem. Instead of dealing with the problem, the mind makes us go here and there and there and everywhere. Suppose, say, I'm supposed to go for a program, and then I'm going in a car and the driver doesn't know where to go, and the driver takes me to a wrong place. And say the program is at 7:45 and it's already 7:30, and I can just blast and shout at the driver, shout at myself, I can get angry with myself. Why did I go here? Why was I so foolish? But if I have gone wrong, I have gone to a wrong place, chastising myself or chastising anyone else is not going to get me to the right destination. Okay, as soon as I realize that I have got on the wrong path, what should I do? Come back on take a turn and come back on the right path. But on this, if we physically get lost, we understand this. Or if we say you're wrong track, we will immediately do this. But when this happens mentally this happens means that something goes wrong in our life. At that time, our mind misdirects or indirects our energy towards resentment. The resentment of reality often hurts much more than reality. So yes, I was late for a program or I was late for an appointment. But if I just keep beating myself up, I'm going to become later. I'm going to become more and more late. Okay, just turn around and go to the program. Or suppose, we are supposed to go for a picnic with some friends, some outing somewhere. And then just before the picnic, I get a flu and I fall sick. I may get frustrated. That, why is it everybody else is going and enjoying and I'm lying over here miserable on this bed, miserable? Now yes, if the treatment is going on properly and we are recovering from the flu, then we will not be in a state of acute physical discomfort. Yeah, the temperature goes, temperature comes, but overall physically we will not in such a terrible discomfort. But at that time, if we are resenting, okay, why couldn't I go? Why couldn't I go? Why couldn't I go? Then that can often cause far greater misery than what would be necessary in that situation. Some amount of misery is unavoidable. Now, life determines our problems. We determine their size. Life determines our problems. We determine their size. How is that? When we keep thinking about a problem, stewing over a problem mentally, it tends to become bigger and bigger and bigger. Sometimes there are coolies. If you tell them, okay, you have to carry this 20 kg, they will say 100 rupees. Okay, fine. Or 50 rupees, whatever. We may give that. Now imagine a coolie is going to get 100 rupees and that coolie is carrying say 20 kg on the head and that coolie puts 20 more kg on the head. See, you're not going to be paid for this. Why are you carrying this? No, no coolie will do like this. But unfortunately, what happens is, our problem is 20 kg and on top of that, our resentment is 100 kg. And we crush ourselves not under the problem, but under the resentment of the problem. Okay. So, yes, sometimes life does give us a ordeal. Things go wrong. And when things go wrong, life treats us unfairly. What to do? First thing is, we accept the reality. Accepting the reality is not passivity. Accepting the reality is proactivity. Passivity means I'm doing nothing. Proactivity means I'm focusing on what I can do the best. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata, the most defining lesson that they teach us is how to respond to adversity with integrity. Now Ram, he was just about to be coronated as the king. And for no fault of his, he was suddenly sent to the forest. He doesn't exhibit any resentment. It was something which is worth becoming resentful about. But there was absolutely no resentment. He accepted it. So, what happened? It's not that when we resent the reality, we don't solve the problem. We actually aggravate the problem. So the present is here, the past is here, the future is here. So the mind, when it indirection means what? The mind, instead of focusing the energy on the present, the mind takes the energy to the past. And we can't change the past. So in this way, the mind, why did I do like that? Why did he do like that? Why did they do like that? Why did this happen? The why questions often are the questions to frustration. Especially in terms of life events, we may not get the answer to the why questions. So rather than asking why this, a far more intelligent question is how now? Okay, how should I act now? If we shift from that why question to the how question, what can I do now? How can I act now? Now our energy becomes constructively channelized. So one way the mind misdirects our energy is towards the past. The other is towards the future. The future is the source of both anxiety and fantasy. Anxiety means we worry that, oh, so many things will go wrong. And fantasy means we dream so many things will go right. So, whatever it is, the important thing is, the future is not in our control. What is in our control is the present. The present is the only thing we have, and the present is the only thing we'll ever have. Because if we think, okay, now my present is difficult, my future will be bright. Okay, fine. Even if it is so, if we dream about a future, some future, remote future, and think, oh, things will be better at that time. Yes, hope is positive. But hope has to be grounded in reality. And that connection between a bright future and a bleak present is based on the actions that we do in the present. So the mind, if it just makes us go into daydreaming and fantasizing, we don't achieve anything. So there is definitely learning from the past and there is planning for the future. Both are important. But when we learn from the past or when we plan for the future, we are in control. Whereas, that means we are in control, we think about, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, what can I learn from this? What did I do wrong? So if we are calm and composed, we can learn from the past and we can plan for the future. But if our mind is in control, then when we think about the past, we don't learn from the past, we simply lament about the past. And when we think, if the mind is in control, when we think about the future, we don't plan for the future, we simply fantasize about the future. And in both ways, we don't achieve anything constructive. So this indirection has to be avoided. And this is one of the ways in which the mind becomes restless. Rather than staying where it is and doing something constructive, the mind jumps here, there and everywhere. And then another problem related with the future as well as the present is negativity. So now fear is not the problem. Fear of what comes after fear is. What does this mean? There are many times our mind or some of us, we go into too much hyper anxiety. This is a few months ago I was in America. I was in Ohio State University. I was giving a talk over there. So there I made this point that actually many Indians were there and many Americans were also there. So I was quoting from a book called The Anxiety Epidemic. And this is normally we think anxiety is caused by uncertainty, isn't it? Suppose say you have to go somewhere and you are late and you want to catch a local. Now whether you will catch the local or not, will you reach on time or not? So when there is uncertainty about that, that causes anxiety. Now relatively speaking, in the developed world, in the first world, as compared to the developing world, in the developed countries, the external uncertainties are much lesser. In India, in some places, if we turn on the tap, we don't know whether water will come or not. If we turn on a power button, we don't know whether the power will turn on or not. So there is a lot of uncertainty. In the West, that level of uncertainty is not there. So normally, we will think that the lesser the uncertainty, the lesser should be the anxiety. But curiously, it is in the developed countries that the anxiety levels are more than in the developing countries. And not only that, consistently surveys have also found that when people from the developing countries emigrate to the developed countries, their anxiety levels go up. So why is it that when there is lesser uncertainty externally, why is it that there is still anxiety? So anxiety is caused not just by external uncertainty. Anxiety is also caused by internal instability. If our mind is unstable, if our mind is restless, we can get into anxiety for little or no reason. Sometimes people get panic attacks. Panic attacks means suppose suppose somebody is going along the road and they say there's a road break over there. There's an accident. The accident is quite ghastly. But suppose you see an accident, you think, people start thinking, oh, what if, if I'm driving and I meet with an accident over there, maybe when I'm driving, my brake will fail. Or maybe when I'm driving, maybe I'll just get a heart attack when I'm driving and then the car will go out of control. Or maybe I'm driving and somebody else, maybe a drunk driver may come along the way. Yes, now these are possibilities. But these are not probabilities. Possibility means something that can happen. Probability is something that is likely to happen. So one of the problems in today's world is because of instant round-the-clock media coverage. So, we get reports of problems very quickly. We get reports of things going wrong very quickly. So for example, if one airplane crashes, yes, an airplane crash is a tragic thing, but there are millions of planes which travel and maybe one crashes. So the probability of something happening to us like that, it is small. Whatever reasonable precautions are there, we should take those precautions, no doubt. So if we are driving a car, we should take necessary precautions. But if the mind is uncontrolled, it becomes paranoid. Paranoid means perpetually fearful, constantly fearful. If we let fear rule our life, we will not be able to do anything. We are sitting here and we are fearful. What if the roof caves? Or instead of looking at the beauty of the chandelier, we may think, what if the chandelier loosens and falls? So many times the uncontrolled mind goes into irrational fears. Yaya swapnam bhayam shokam vishadam madamevacha na vimunchiti durmedha buddhisa partha tamasi. So dhrutisa partha tamasi. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 18.36 that yaya swapnam bhayam shokam. So that intelligence, actually, sometimes when people imagine daredevilish situations, imagine terrible situations. Utopia is a very unrealistically positive situation, positive future. The opposite of utopia is dystopia. So dystopia is an unrealistically negative situation. So now to imagine some negative situation also requires some level of intelligence, isn't it? I had gone to a medical conference, and there at an international medical conference, so one doctor was telling over there that he gives an example of how people get diseases and insecurity unnecessarily. So there was this lady. Every 3 months she would go to a doctor to check. Doctor, do I have cancer? Do I have cancer? Do I have cancer? The doctor, don't worry. You don't have any problems. Don't worry. She went like this for 25 years. And after 25 years, doctor said, you have cancer. See, doctor, I was right. So now, taking precautions, having a yearly medical checkup or whatever, that is a reasonable precaution. But being paranoid about future problems, yes, after 25 years one got cancer, but why live in worry for 25 years? That's not required. So sometimes we need to confront our fears. Our mind has certain irrational fears. And if we let the mind go along those irrational fears, even without much of a real problem, we will be really worried. We will be really anxious. We will become really paralyzed. So by taking realistic precautions, assessing the situation properly and taking realistic precautions, we need to move onwards in life. The mind has this tendency towards negativity. And this negativity can work in various ways. Anxiety is just one symptom of the negativity. The negativity also works out in terms of scarcity. Scarcity means the mind always makes us feel, oh, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have that. So imagine, so now suppose, no need to imagine, so after this lecture, you are going to have a feast. So now suppose, here comes the imagination. Suppose this is a special feast and everyone of you is going to get an individual menu feast. So everybody is going to get different items in their feast. And suppose now in such a situation, the mind, instead of relishing what is in your plate, will say, oh, he has got that. Oh, he has got that. He has got that. So, rather than enjoying the delicacies on one's own plate, the mind starts lamenting, oh, I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that. This is how the mind is negative. See, all of us, just like we could have a feast, individual feast, so like that, all of us have our own individual set of talents. We all have our talents, we have our strengths, but quite often, because of external cultural glamorization or because of our upbringing or whatever, certain talents, certain skills are glamorized in society. And we crave, oh, maybe if I could be like this, if I had been like that, oh, that person looks so good, that person speaks so well, that person walks so smartly, that person has got this. We keep looking at what others have and we don't look at what we have. One of the easiest ways to make ourselves miserable is to compare ourselves with others. It is a shortcut, a surefire shortcut to misery. God has created each one of us specially. Every one of us is special. Every one of us is unique. Now, what we are is God's gift to us. What we become is our gift to God. What we are is God's gift to us. So we also have a feast. But rather than looking at what God has gifted us, we see, oh, what has God gifted that person? What has God gifted that person? God gifted that person. We don't have to look at others. What we are is God's gift to us. And what we become, whatever talents we have, we use those talents constructively and we can make positive contributions in our life. What we become is our gift to God. So the negativity of the mind comes subtly by making us see all the things that we don't have. Manah prasad saumyatvam. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 17th chapter, 16th verse, talks about austerity of the mind. So there he says, Manah prasada. He says satisfaction is an austerity of the mind. Now normally we think of satisfaction as an emotion. I am feeling satisfied or I am not feeling satisfied. Yes, satisfaction is an emotion, but along with that, satisfaction is also a decision. Satisfaction is not just an emotion. It is an emotion, but along with that, it is also a decision. What does it mean? It is also a decision. So if I have a feast in my plate, if I keep looking at the feast that others have, that emotion of dissatisfaction is going to increase. But if I decide, okay, this is what I have got and I'll be happy with this, I take the decision of satisfaction, then we will be satisfied. So Krishna says that this satisfaction we need to cultivate as an austerity. Rather than looking at what we don't have, we look at what we have. And often if we look at what we have, we will find that we have many hidden talents which we didn't tap, which we didn't even know about, or we have some talents which we can tap more and more. So this negativity of the mind, the tendency, whatever is the situation, look at it negative. That is a tendency which we need to correct. And the last we'll discuss is, D is double rule. This is among the most insidious ways in which the mind tricks us. So suppose we decide, I don't want to become obese, so I'll regulate my diet. And then there is a feast, and then we eat, and we start a decision with the decision, I'm not going to overeat today. But then what happens? We start eating maybe a little more. And then what is happening all this time? The mind is telling, one more piece, what is the problem? One more helping, what is the problem? one more helping, what is the problem? And then you overeat. And then afterwards, the stomach starts bloating. And then the same mind says, what a fool you are! Don't you have any common sense? Why did you have to eat so much? You are a glutton. So, the same mind first makes us do wrong and then chastises us for doing wrong. So now, if we have done something wrong, guilt is good. But there are, say there is this wrongdoing, and then this is, okay, this is a wrongdoing, we are here. Now guilt should come between us and the wrongdoing. But when the mind chastises us, what happens is, see, our strength to do right, we'll discuss in the concluding part, our strength to do right can come from many sources. The strongest source from which it comes is Krishna. When we connect with Him through spirituality, then we get tremendous inner strength. So, ideally speaking, say if it's Krishna over here, we are over here. And whatever undesirable activity is there, whatever wrongdoing is, that's here. So the guilt should come here, between us and the wrongdoing. But when the mind makes us guilty, now that is pseudo guilt. And that guilt comes here. Means we feel, I am good for nothing. The mind says, I am a fool. You are a fool. Yes, I am a fool. You are good for nothing. Yes, you are good for nothing. Give up bhakti. Give up bhakti. So, when the mind chastises us, there are two kinds of people who give corrections. There is a coach and there is a critic. So, coaches are those who point out our wrong, but they focus on our potential for good. And they bring out the good within us. But the critics, or among the critics also there are cynics. Cynics, they just focus on the negative. And if we hear the voice of the cynics too much, we often can get completely devastated, shattered. So the mind is not a coach, it is a cynic. So when it plays this double role, makes us do wrong and then chastises us for doing wrong, at that time, that chastisement, it doesn't inspire us to do right. It actually sinks us in self-pity. Now self-pity is, oh, I am good for nothing, I am useless, I am helpless, I'm just good for nothing. So one time one devotee came to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I am the most fallen person. So Prabhupada said, you are the most nothing. So most nothing means to think that that I-centeredness, that is not at all empowering. That is disempowering. So even if you have done something wrong, what do you do after that? Get up and start off. If we just wallow, why did I do this? I'll never do right. I'm always a fool. I'm good for nothing. That way we'll never learn. Often, sometimes we feel, I don't have confidence. I lack confidence, some people say. Actually, it is not that we lack confidence. More often than not, the problem is not lack of confidence. The problem is overconfidence in our cynical mind. We have overconfidence in our cynical mind. Hey, if you speak in public, you will make a cake of yourself. You will make a fool out of yourself. If you do this, you will be embarrassed. If you do this, nothing is going to happen. If you do this, nothing is going to happen. So, now, is the mind a prophet to know what is going to happen in the future? No, the mind is not a prophet. The mind is a cynic. And if we listen to the mind, we will never be able to do anything constructive. So, the mind, when it takes this double role, it actually discourages us and it paralyzes us. Suppose a boxing match is going on. Two boxers are fighting, and suddenly there is A and there is B. And then B suddenly gives a big punch on A, and A is knocked down. Now at that time, if A is on the ground, what should A do? Now, it is a shattering blow actually. But if A is to fight, A should turn and look at the coach. or I should, and the coach, come on, get up, you can fight. You can win, get up. But if A looks at B only, he says, can I win this match? Never! So, if there's a boxing match going on, the opponent who has knocked you down, we don't take his opinion seriously. We take our coach's opinion seriously. So like that, what happens? The mind knocks us down, and then we ask the mind only, can I win this? Well, the mind is going to say, no, you can never do it. So we all, whatever we try to do, often when we say, I can't do it, often underlying that is what? There is the mind with its twisted ego, which means to say, you should not do it unless you do it perfectly. That's not necessary. Nobody starts off being perfect. No, even the world's champion athlete, say champion runner, the world's Olympic gold medalist runner, he or she was not born running. Even they began by crawling on the ground, taking few steps, falling, rising. So that's how we all grow. So often the mind, when it does this, this double role, first it makes us do wrong, and then it chastises us for doing wrong. So in anything that we do, the mind makes us strive for unrealistic perfectionism. And in trying to be perfect, we become perfectly nothing. We don't do anything at all. So this double role we have to avoid. So now I talked about all these ways in which the mind can mislead us. It can misdirect us. So how do we deal with this mind? So what all is inside us, we need to understand this. The Bhagavad Gita explains that inside us are many things. So there are superficial desires generated by the corporate control media. What does that mean? There's a British author, Oscar Wilde. He said, fashion is a form of ugliness so intolerable that you have to change it every 6 months. Fashion is a form of, normally think fashionable means beautiful, but fashion is a form of ugliness. Why ugliness? The very thing which looks attractive, captivating today, after 6 months, when it becomes old-fashioned, and that say, hey, you're so old-fashioned, you're wearing this, you're carrying this, you're doing this. It becomes ugliness, and it becomes intolerable ugliness. So fashion is a form of ugliness so intolerable that we have to change it every 6 months. So when we let the contemporary culture define our self-worth, then we have to acquire so many things. Get this, buy this, eat this, go here, go there, get this. And then we will be considered fashionable, we will be considered cool. So many of the desires which dominate us, many of the desires which create dissatisfaction within us, they are often superficial desires. They are not very important for us. So, although because of repeatedly being exposed to those desires, again and again from outside there's propaganda for those desires. So, because of them, we may start thinking these are my desires. But they are not our desires. They are desires which have come from outside and they have been ingrained within us because of repeated exposure to particular things. So these, when we start going inward, when we start practicing spirituality, when we understand the Bhagavad Gita. Now, normally if we have a mirror, mirrors make people self-conscious. How is my hair combed? How is my dress? How are my looks? Mirrors make us self-conscious. The Bhagavad Gita is also like a mirror. But it doesn't make us self-conscious, it makes us conscious of the self. It makes us conscious of the self. It makes us understand who we actually are. what are our actual priorities, what are our actual necessities. So when we study Bhagavad Gita, we start understanding this is not really important for me. Now this doesn't mean that we should be unambitious and we should have no desires at all. That's not the point. The Bhagavad Gita also talks about certain desires that are natural to us. Now by natural, there can be two things. As I said, we have a material side to our being and we have a spiritual side to our being. Our core is spiritual. Along with that, we have a particular body in which we live. Radha, Gopinath, Bhagwan. So, all of us have a certain nature. And according to our nature, earlier I talked about how all of us have been given certain gifts. We all have our feast. So, when we act according to our nature, then we live compatibly, we live satisfied. So Krishna did not tell Arjuna that because you want to be spiritual, you renounce the world. Krishna told Arjuna, you are an archer, fight as an archer, live as a warrior. That is your nature. So all of us have certain desires, certain inclinations that come from our nature. And that nature, the Bhagavad Gita doesn't say we have to renounce it. Swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. The Bhagavad Gita 18.46, Krishna says, Swakarmana, by your work, tam abhyarcha, worship him. Some people mistranslate this as work is worship. But Krishna doesn't teach work is worship. Krishna teaches worship him with your work. Work is not automatically worship. Now, if work were automatically worship, then the donkey would be the greatest worshipper. So this is not to minimize or denigrate work. This is also not to minimize the idea. The feeling under work is worship is that no work should be minimized. No work should be denigrated. That is true. The dignity of labor, if work is worship is used, the phrase work is worship is used to convey the dignity of labor, that is fine. But if work is worship is used to say that there is no need for worship, whatever you do work, that itself is worship, then that is a misunderstanding. Krishna doesn't teach that. Krishna says, Swakarmana tam abhyarcha, by your work worship him. That means we have time for our spiritual side where we develop devotion for him. We develop the mood of worship through our sadhana, through our study of scripture, through our mantra meditation. We develop a mood of worship, and after that we carry that mood of worship in our work. That's how our work will become worship. So Krishna doesn't say we have to give up our work. He says we can spiritualize our work, do it in a mood of worship. And when we do this, so that there are these desires which are according to our innate nature, and Krishna doesn't tell us to give them up. He tells us spiritualize them, harmonize them with our spiritual purpose. And then at our very core is our soul, and the soul's innate nature is to love and serve Krishna. That is the innate nature. Wherever a person may be, whichever part of the world person may be, actually there is a longing within the person, all people. What is their ultimately in life? What is the ultimate goal of life? We all want to love and to be loved. And this longing, when it is directed towards an eternal being, then it brings us eternal satisfaction. So, this longing to serve Krishna, that is our innermost desire. But serving Krishna doesn't mean renouncing the world. It means connecting what we are doing in the world with Krishna. But there are often many desires within us which neither connect us with Krishna nor are they connected with our innate nature. So we do them because of pressure from outside. So for example, students may pursue a particular career because that's the glamorized career. Somebody may want to actually have talent to become an artist, but the glamorized career is engineering or medicine, and people pursue that. Of course, over a period of time, even within a career we have pursued, we can find out, okay, yes, I get into engineering, but I'm not so much interested in this aspect of engineering. I'm more interested in this aspect of engineering. So when we are living, if we observe ourselves, Krishna says, Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. Guna Karma means actually inner compatibility and outer competence. Inner compatibility and outer competence. Whatever is our nature, we'll find that we are good at doing it. And we feel comfortable. Yeah, this is what I would like to do. Inner compatibility, inner comfort and outer competence. So like if we observe ourselves, we will discover our nature. And developing that nature will actually bring us satisfaction, will bring us peace. Then this last part, living with the mind. What does it require? Distance, determination and devotion. Distance means that because suppose, imagine if say you are doing something, say you are writing something, you're learning to write, maybe have your own blog, or you're learning music, and somebody came along, some friend came along and he said, you are good for nothing. Actually, if somebody spoke like that, it could very well invoke a fighting spirit within. I will show you how good I am, we would feel affronted, we would feel insulted. How dare a person say that you are good for nothing? But when exactly the same thing, the mind says inside, you are good for nothing. Oh, yes, I am good for nothing. What happens is, because the mind is inside us, we don't realize that it is the mind speaking. That's why we need some distance from the mind. How do we create a distance from the mind? That distance is created first of all by philosophical education, which helps us understand that there is something inside me which is not me. So we need philosophy and we need regular reminders. It's like I said, scripture acts like a mirror, which helps us understand what all is there inside. But along with that, there is meditation. There are different forms of meditation. Mantra meditation is especially potent. Why? Because mantra meditation elevates our consciousness. Suppose somebody is at the foot of a skyscraper. The skyscraper will seem to be huge and that person will feel dwarfed. But if that person is airlifted by a helicopter and that person is above, then the skyscraper is the same, but the person will say the skyscraper is below. What has happened? So like that, if we compare the skyscraper to a problem in our life, then when we are at a normal level of consciousness, we'll feel the problem is so big. But meditation is a tool for raising our consciousness. And if there is a helicopter above, and that helicopter throws, somebody sends a rope down, and by that rope we are pulled up, then we can easily rise up. So the mantra is like that consciousness elevator. It's a rope that is sent down to us, and when we situate our consciousness in the spiritual sound vibration of the mantra, then our consciousness gets elevated. It gets elevated. So when it is elevated upwards, we can look at ourselves, hey, this is the mind. So for example, sometimes when we try to chant the holy names, at that time we realize, hey, I'm trying to chant, but the mind is going here, mind is going there, mind is going there. Actually speaking, Tukaram Maharaj was once asked, when I start chanting, the mind runs here and there. He says, why do you run after the mind? The mind will run, but why do you have to run after it? Yato yato nischalati manaschanchalam astiram tatastato niyam yaitad atmanyeva vasham nayet. Krishna says in 6.26 that wherever and whenever the mind wanders, bring it back under the control of the self. What does this mean? That actually earlier, when the mind had wandered, we would also have wandered with the mind. So now at least we are protesting that the mind is wandering. And that itself is progress. Suppose, if a baby is mischievous, and now the baby goes here, baby goes there, smile. The babies are just, they just don't know anything. The baby grows up, then the child is supposed to become mature. So when the child is supposed to be mature, then the child is supposed to do more constructive activities. And if the child wants to play all the time, then the mother will say, okay, you play for some time, but now you have to study. But suppose, the child is playing and the mother also gives up everything and starts playing. All day, all night, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, the mother is playing with the child. The others will say, what are you doing? You have to make the child grow. You don't have to go down to the level of the child. Yes, you can communicate with the child, you should befriend the child, be affectionate to the child, but the child should grow. Isn't it? So what happens, if we practice mantra meditation, we expect, immediately my mind will become controlled. That is not going to work. Because the mind has a lot of momentum. No matter, even if, suppose a train is, now there are bullet trains which are being proposed. A train is moving at 500 miles per hour. And then, even with the most powerful brake, you cannot expect the train to stop immediately. It may take sometimes it may go to several dozen miles before it stops. But at least there is a brake. So our mind has a momentum. And we can't expect it to stop immediately. But when we chant, when we start practicing mantra meditation, the first thing that we are doing is, we are not running along with the mind. We are at least recognizing the mind is running, let me bring it back. So that is like putting a brake. So mantra meditation, it creates a distance between us and the mind. Because what happens, when we try to chant, and then I want to chant, but why am I thinking of this? Why am I thinking of that? When we start realizing what all we are thinking about, at that time we can understand, yes, there is really a mind inside me which goes here and there. And that realization is also a positive step forward. So, mantra meditation, at the very least, it confronts us with the reality that there is a mind inside me which goes here and there. And then it gives us the resources to control the mind. So, first step is distance. We create a distance between ourselves and the mind. Second is determination. Now, sometimes some people say, I just don't have any determination. Actually, that is just not possible. Everyone has determination. It is just that our determination is misdirected. Suppose somebody will say, I have no determination. I'm so lazy. I sleep for 15 hours every day. Suppose somebody says like that. Well, actually, to sleep 15 hours a day also requires determination. Isn't it? See, what does determination mean? Determination means, there is opposition for doing something and still we keep doing it. If I sleep for 15 hours, then, my relatives, my friends, they're all criticizing me. Why are you so lazy? You're wasting so much time. And we also have a guilty conscience. Why am I wasting so much time? And in spite of that, we sleep. That is determination. It is, of course, misdirected determination. But it is determination. So no one can say, I don't have any determination. We all have determination, but it is just misdirected. So what bhakti does is, it redirects our determination in constructive channels. When we start chanting Hare Krishna, when we start connecting with Krishna, that same force of determination which was misdirected, it starts getting redirected towards Krishna. And determination can come from various ways. The most forceful way in which determination we can get is through devotion. Radha Gopinath Bhagavan. So devotion. How does devotion develop our determination? Tatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dudhavrataha namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. 9.14 the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that my devotees practice bhakti with determination. Dudhavrataha. So devotion, determination is, we often think of determination as a matter of raw willpower. And willpower is definitely important. But if our determination is based only on willpower, and it cannot be sustained for long. Why? Because suppose somebody has got a stomach upset, and the stomach upset is causing loose motions, and a person says, determination, determination, I will not respond to nature, determination. Well, that sort of determination is not going to work. If there is a physical disease, determination should not be used and cannot be used to suppress the symptoms of the disease. Determination has to be channeled to take the treatment. Yes, if I got a stomach upset, the doctor says, okay, take this medicine morning, afternoon, evening. Even if it is bitter, take it. The doctor says, no, now eat very simple diet. That is, I should channel my determination properly. And then when I do that, then I'll get cured. So, determination is not just a matter of raw willpower. Determination needs to be complemented with the right process. Then it will be productive. Without the right process, just trying to be determined can very easily lead to frustration. Suppose a person doesn't have eyes, and the person says, no, by determination I will see. Well, it's not going to work. Yes, determination you can use to find whether there is a treatment available, go to a doctor, maybe earn the money, take the treatment, do the surgery, and then you will be able to see. So determination, sometimes people say that, okay, I have some deficiencies, but by determination I will overcome all of them. This is what is the common teaching of many books on self-help. Nowadays, this, as I told, because mainstream science doesn't deal with the mind so much. So a whole industry of self-help books has come up. And all these self-help books, they just talk about positive thinking. There is a book called The Secret. It was there a few years ago. Now there are many other books which keep coming, which say that, just visualize, just think, just positive, be positive. Everything will come in your life. Well, we should be positive, but no matter how positive I am, positivity is not going to stop me from growing old. Positivity is not going to stop me from getting disease. Positivity is not going to stop me from dying. I may say, I am positive. Well, you have positively gone to the next life now. So, positivity is not just about imagining something. Now, positive attitude is important. But positivity has to be complemented. The Bhagavad Gita doesn't just offer us positive perception of reality. If a glass is empty, to say that it is if it is half empty, to say that it is half empty, we could say it is negativity. To say it is half full is positivity. But if the glass is empty, then to say it is full, that is not positivity. That is stupidity. So often there is this challenge that people try to make their own thoughts, or people means self-help teachers, they often sometimes make our own attitude, our own thoughts, our own mind, they try to make it into a God itself. If you just think, whatever you think, it will happen. Well, it doesn't work like that. We do have to change our thoughts. But changing our thoughts doesn't just mean, say, it's good to look at how the glass is half full instead of half empty. But positivity is not a denial of reality. The Bhagavad Gita offers us not just a positive perception of reality, it offers us perception of positive reality. Positive perception of reality means, okay, the glass is half empty, see it as half full. That is positive perception of reality. But there is perception of positive reality. Perception of positive reality means that beyond our physical side, which is temporary, which is perishable, we have our spiritual side. The spiritual side is indestructible. That beyond whatever happens in this world, there is an eternal God. And God loves us always. He's always there in our heart and He's never going to leave us and go away. Madruk prapanna pashupasha vimokshanaya muktaya bhuri karunaya namo layaya. The Srimad Bhagavatam in its canto says that Krishna, He's alayaya, He's tireless. He is there to help us. He is there to guide us. And Krishna, He's there to catch us. But He is there to catch us not when we do wrong, but He's there to catch us when we fall. Now, He's not a fault-finding God. Hey, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. That is not Krishna's mood. Krishna, when we fall, Krishna is there to catch us. And He's there to lift us up. We may be unqualified, but we are never disqualified. We may be unqualified, we may have any contamination, but Krishna never rejects us. Krishna says, you never say that you can't practice bhakti, get out of here. No, Krishna always loves us and he's always there with us. And when we connect with him, his omnipotence comes to our assistance. And by that omnipotence, we can do things which we might have thought earlier to be impossible for us. So ultimately turning the mind, purifying the mind, learning to live with the mind, dining with the monkey, that essentially means dining on Krishna Prasad. Krishna Prasad is not just physical food, but it is the mercy of Krishna. When we connect ourselves with Krishna, we connect our mind with Krishna. That's why the Bhagavad Gita again and again tells us, fix the mind on Krishna. When we do that, the mind will become purified. So just like if there's a dangerous antivirus in the software, the dangerous virus in the software, the virus is removed, then the software will function efficiently and we'll be able to do our work. So like that, the mind which is filled with many negative scripts right now, if we focus it on Krishna consistently, the mind will become purified. And when it is purified, then Krishna says the same mind will become our friend. And that mind will assist us in doing constructive things in our life. And this change in our inner dynamics, when the mind becomes peaceful, then we become joyful. When the mind becomes peaceful, mind is currently restless. I want this, I want that. Why is this going wrong? Why is that going wrong? But prashantamanasam hiyenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shantarajasam brahmabhutamakalmasham. Krishna says in 6.27, prashantamanasam hiyenam. The mind will become prashanta, deeply peaceful. Sukhina yoginam sukhamuttamam. At that time, we'll experience the supreme happiness. So when the mind becomes peaceful, we will become joyful. And the Bhagavad Gita and the message of devotion and Krishna himself are all there to assist us, to guide us, to inspire us toward this journey of making our mind peaceful and regaining our inner joyfulness. So I'll summarize. I started by talking about how there is something inside us which seems to sabotage us. And the Bhagavad Gita explained that that is the mind. So there is the hardware, software and the computer user. Like that, we have the body, the mind and the soul. So the mind is like a software which is contaminated, and it misdirects us. So we discussed about external and internal. We think of it from the reference point of the body, but from the point of view of the soul, even the mind is external. So everything that is inside me is not me. Then we discussed the acronym MIND, the 4 ways in which the mind acts like a monkey and misdirects us. What was M? Misdiagnosis. Misdiagnosis. I discussed several examples. Satchitananda becomes Saturday Chitananda. So our doctor may diagnose something wrong. So then the mind often makes us think that a particular thing is a solution to whatever problem there is. But that particular form of short-term pleasure, that often increases our problem rather than solving the problem. So what is frequently the cause of the problem, the mind misdiagnoses as the cure for the problem. I give the example of the alcohol addict and how late in the night he was crumbled on the ground. And so our dissatisfaction is not caused so much by frustration of desire as it is caused by domination by desire. So the mind misdiagnoses us and makes us think that, because my desires are not fulfilled, that's why I am frustrated. No, we have unnecessary desire, that's why we are dissatisfied and we are dominated by those desires. So then I was in direction. Instead of directly dealing with the problem that is there, the mind goes to the past, the mind goes to the future. Resentment of reality often hurts much more than reality. If I have gone to a wrong place, okay, just turn around and come back. But the mind, why did this go wrong? Why did this go wrong? Why did this go wrong? Why did I fall sick? The flu does not cause as much pain as the resentment because I have got the flu. So then, another way the indirection is about the future. So, if the way to the future is through the present, and we need to focus on the present. Then N was negativity. In negativity, I discussed about anxiety disorder. How anxiety is caused not just by outer uncertainty, it is also caused by inner instability. The mind is restless, then we will always be anxious. And then talk about how the mind has irrational fears, dystopia. And it can paralyze us by thinking in terms of negative about everything. Oh, what if this goes wrong, this goes wrong, this goes wrong. So we need to, everything we can say is a possibility. But we can't live our life fearful of various terrible possibilities. But look at what is the probability. And prepare for the probability and do away with the mind's irrational fears. The negativity also I discussed how the mind looks as what we don't have. Instead of looking at the delicacies in our plate, the mind looks at what all is there in others' plates. So what we have, what we are is God's gift to us. And what we become is our gift to God. And then we discuss D is double role. So the mind itself first makes us do wrong and then chastises us for doing wrong. So that when the guilt is induced by the mind, that is pseudo guilt. If anything takes us away from Krishna, if anything disheartens us in doing something positive, then that is not guilt, that is pseudo guilt. So I describe that real guilt comes between us and the wrongdoing, but pseudo guilt comes between us and Krishna. So the mind, when it plays this double role, it actually not only it makes us do wrong, not only chastises us for doing wrong, but disheartens from doing the thing which will help us to correct the wrong. Just like if a person has been beaten down if a boxing competitor has been beaten down by the opponent, that boxer should not ask the opponent, should ask the coach, what should I do? So like that, we shouldn't consult the mind about whether we can do some things or not. We need to consult Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. We discussed how mirrors make us self-conscious, but scripture makes us conscious of the self. We start understanding our inner dynamics. And then we discuss about what all is there inside us. We have corporate control, we have superficial desires which are coming from the corporate control media. Fashion is a form of ugliness so intolerable, we have to change it every 6 months. So we should put aside these desires. And then there are desires according to our innate nature. So if you observe what we feel, what we are externally competent at and internally we are comfortable doing, that is our inner nature. And then at a core level is our spiritual desire, the longing of the soul to serve Krishna. And so bhakti doesn't tell us to renounce the world, it rather tells us to connect what we are doing with Krishna and offer it to Krishna. Work itself is not worship, but work can be made into worship when we have time for worship and get a mood of worship which we infuse in our work. And then lastly, we discuss for dealing with the mind, the 3 Ds. Distance, detachment, distance, determination and devotion. Distance means that just like a person who is in a problematic area, the person is airlifted above and the problem doesn't appear so big. So like that, meditation airlifts our consciousness above our situations and it creates a distance. You can see this is the mind speaking. So rather than, even when we are chanting, if you're not able to concentrate, rather than lamenting that I'm not concentrating, you can think, yes, I understand there is a mind. That is what is causing me to distract. Let me focus, and gradually the mind will get disciplined. Then D was determination. We all have determination. It is just misdirected. So rather than saying that I don't have determination, whenever we feel sometimes from within I don't have determination, we should know this is a double role of the mind. Saying that I don't have determination. I have determination, I just have to direct it properly. And then last is devotion. I discussed how it is not that by our own willpower we can change the undeniable realities of the world. So spirituality, devotion of Bhagavad Gita offers us not just a positive perception of reality, it offers us perception of positive reality. That there is, beyond all the problems that are there in this world, there is an eternal, indestructible, supreme God who always loves us and who is there to help us. By focusing on our vision on this world, we will fill ourselves with anxiety. But we raise our vision to God, and that will fill us with security. That will fill us with confidence. And then we can act constructively. And as we keep ourselves devoted to Krishna, the mind's momentum, which is going towards wrong things, it will slow down, it will stop, and it will reverse. It will go towards constructive things. So when the mind becomes peaceful, we become joyful. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we really thank His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. It was excellent. The topic was dining with a monkey, but it was mining with a monk. Lot of diamonds he has given us. So let us again express our heartfelt gratitude to Prabhuji's diamonds that he has shared with all of us by loudly chanting Haribo! 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 And the miner of this monk, his father is also sitting there. So we'd like to thank him also for coming by loudly chanting Haribo! 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 Also the guests that have come and all the new boys that the first time, those who have come, all the boys that they have come for the first time, can you stand up? All the boys that have come for the Prerana festival for the first time. So we thank all of you for kindly taking out your time on a Friday night. Generally people have other plans. So let us thank them to our family for coming by loudly chanting Haribo! 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 So please be connected to all our different programs. Please be seated. And we have this regular monthly festival every month. And different localities of Bombay we have regular programs. So please be connected. So there is a newcomers gift stall downstairs where you can collect a free gift for you. And also the prasadam for the guests and for all of you will be in the Bhaktivedanta hall. The next Prerana will be on 18th March